seats. All right. All right, good evening and welcome to Majors and Quinn. My name is Michael. I'm one of the booksellers here. I'm very pleased you'll be joining us to listen to Todd Smith launch his book, Relegated, One American's Pints and Pies Journey from the Top to the Bottom. We're so glad we lasted Todd here tonight for this bookstore's version of the TED Talk. We believe this should be a premier event, although alas we have no pints, pies, nor even tarts. You need not worry, there will be time at the end of the program, so be ready to ask questions. Tonight, Todd will be in conversation with musician John Munson. After the Q&A, please allow the author to move to the signing counter, which is the glass display case you passed on your way into the store. That row has a stack of books, and you should line up there to say hello and get a signed copy of this book. If you buy a book here this evening, you are not only supporting this man, young Todd Smith, but also a locally owned The Independent bookstore, and we can't thank you enough. We keenly ask you to silence your cell phones, and we hope you have a great time. If you're wondering about some of these tortured puns, there are 15 individual Ted Lasso puns in my introduction, accounting for possibly you thinking that I have had a stroke in the recent past. John Munson is a musician and a Miles Davis fan. He is awesome, period. And finally, a man who needs no introduction, Todd Smith is a Ted Lasso, pronouncing that correctly, esque figure, a Midwestern dad with deep life experience and an endless supply of pop culture references. He is the director of a landscaping supply yard in South Minneapolis, the author of Hockey Strong, Stories of Sacrifice from Inside the NHL, and the co-writer of Brave Enough with Olympian Jesse Diggins, a longtime contributor for the Minnesota Wild. His work has also appeared in The Rake, Minnesota Monthly, and Twin Cities Metro Magazine, where he penned a print column and blog on modern manhood and fatherhood. Smith runs a donkey soccer league, a Sunday morning game. Indeed, for assorted nitwits and out-of-shape middle-aged scallywags. You still cheering for your son? Where Smith lives with his wife and son. Please welcome Todd Smith and John Munson.
You know, John, here we both are. Here we are. So, there's a lot of reasons why I'm here today. And one of those reasons
Two of the primary ones are sitting right there, I believe.
the functionary ones are right here. But there's a lot of things that led me here. But one of them was years ago. It was a simple text from you.
I'm waiting.
And I was on my couch in my house, and it was 7 a.m., and you were on your couch at 7 a.m., and we were watching the same Wolves game, and we were both sadder than we've ever been. And during that
Not as sad as today.
and at that time, what you didn't know is that I was like not in a good place with the writing, and I was really kind of down. And then all of a sudden the universe sent like a lifeline. It was your text, and you said, we should go to a game. And then the little dots started going, and you were like, over there? And I was like, I think over there.
Definitely.
Definitely. And then what that led to, that one little text, we should go to a game. All of a sudden, my brain got activated in a way that it used to get activated. And I started thinking, what would it be like if Munson and I went over there? Where would we go? What would we see? And then, before I knew it, there was a map of England on my kitchen wall, and a very curious wife who would walk through the kitchen and say, what is going on?
What's this all about?
What's this all about?
Are you planning to take me on some fancy anniversary trip during COVID?
And I said, maybe. And then I said, blame Munson. I just threw you under the bus immediately.
Thanks, man.
But that one text that said we should go to a game, that is one of the things that led me here today for this book. So
That's a great memory, and there were a lot of early mornings like that. As any Premier League fan knows, that's when you have to watch the games. That's when they happen early on the weekend mornings. You take it all in, and your heart breaks. I think the thing that really sold me on the Premier League was their no room for racism move that they did at the beginning of all their games. That everyone took a knee in a circle collectively at the beginning of the games, and I said, what kind of a league is this that has players from all over the world who are definitely kneeling for no room for racism in England, which is a really racist place when you think about it. You know, it's like quite a brutal place in some ways in that way. And I was like, that's a really important gesture to make for that country and for people who are so devoted to that game. And so that's what really suckered me in on the EPL, I have to say. And then during COVID, it got really serious, and I started crying during the games and stuff. And now, as things are with the Wolves, I'm really, the tears are flowing freely.
well, there's
to
a
watch
lot
them
of
go down.
there's a lot of guys here that, for us middle-aged guys watching football, that is because the games are on at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. And there's a lot of early morning texts between a lot of dudes here that it's the new, like, hookup. It's like, you up?
You watching this?
Are you up? Because we need to fire off some texts. And then before you know it, you're like a half hour in, and it's hot and it's spicy and it's beautiful. But I want to go back to your point about the anti-racism and stuff, because I spent 3 months traveling throughout the UK. And the question I get a lot from people is how did you decide to go to this location and this location and this location? And it came down to very simple, like, Google searches, right? That were like closest pitch to the North Sea. And then you find out it's in northeast Scotland, right? And so you dig a little into that, and you're like, who's the groundskeeper who tends to the grass that's closest to the North Sea? Then you find that guy. And then you start digging. But one of my searches was, I wanted to profile a team in a community that was the polar opposite of football in England for decades, right? So hooliganism, racism, the horrible chants, and everything like that. And so I just simply typed in, like, anti-fascist football club. And then you get, like, a whole list of them. And then, because my algorithm is all English football, a highlight came through of a player that looked like an NFL player, meaning he was not fit. He was a large man. He looked like the Jason Kelsey, right? Big beard, big belly, the whole thing. And I saw this highlight of this very large man perform one of the greatest free kicks I'd ever seen. And I was like, who is this guy? Who is this team? And so I just start scratching at it, and I find out that this unlikely character, I would say a hero in my eyes, played for a club, Clapton CFC. And then I start digging into what is Clapton CFC. Well, they're at the top of the list for anti-fascist clubs. And so I start digging into their whole life cycle, and I find out that they're the change that they wanted to see in English football. which goes directly back to our conversation via the text in the morning about how the EPL was trying the best they could to make the change
Right.
against a lot of the forces at that time that were pressing in on a lot of people and also dividing a lot of people.
Right.
And so that was the first. Murph and I went to a Spurs Burnley FA Cup game. And so we were in the Spurs Stadium, which is, I think it's like 1 point something billion. And they had a cheesemonger and like all the things. Their floor changes out for an NFL pitch, and then it changes out to an American football pitch, and all the glitz and all the glamour. And I wanted the trip to start there, but then I wanted to go to its polar opposite, which was Clapton CFC in East London. And it was the ground that they play on is called the Old Spotted Dog, which was enough for me. But then when I walked in, there's a bar that was on the ground, and there was like a DJ in the bar playing like old school, like specials, dub music, ska, and I thought, okay,
This is for me.
this is my jam. And so it was such a wonderful experience to start, like all of us really, who watch English football in the mornings, Saturdays and Sundays, to make that journey from the couch to the Old Spotted Dog. And
Which you would never see unless you actually went there. Actually, I mean,
Right.
you have to go to England to see that,
yeah,
because that's not generally what they're going to be showing you. Even I think of it when you talk about that the bar there. I think about the bar Wrexham that we
Yeah.
went to with Luca
yeah,
and sat around there having a couple of beers, and how tiny that was, and how that field was such a small little scene, like such a hub of that town. And of course they've got these TV stars now kind of supporting their team, and that they kind of resent it, but they kind of like it.
yeah,
You know, it's like, you mean there's a chance?
yeah.
You know?
So Wrexham's a fascinating story in a lot of ways, but they make no mistake. Wrexham is the villain over there. Everywhere I went, from the north to the south to the Scottish island, you bring up Wrexham, and I never brought up Wrexham. But when Wrexham came up, it was always very, very looked down upon for a lot of different reasons. But I would always have to gently counter. I would say, I'd be in some just ratty northern town, and I would have to gently say, you're kidding yourself if you wouldn't accept the hundreds of millions of dollars that would be brought into your football club and your town, that would lift up your town in so many different levels. And one of those basic elements is your football experience at the match.
Right.
And they would all counter with, it's not proper, it's Americans, and all this stuff. And I get it. And I was just in Brooklyn, New York, and I kicked off my little whatever this is. And the other author with me is a columnist for The Guardian. And he told me that Wrexham, or the two people that own Wrexham, the Hollywood people, they had secured and demanded two television seasons before they entered conversation on owning the football club. And so that news started to get out in England, and so it just tainted everything. But the greatest example of that was when I was in Grimsby, which
As bad as it sounds.
it's appropriately named. That Google search was worst city in England. And it came up as Grimsby. And I said, you can't make this up. So like, okay, does Grimsby have a football team? Oh, they have a football team.
Absolutely. They're devoted to it.
I'm devoted to it. And so I went to Grimsby, and I will admit, I thought to myself, you know this, how bad can Grimsby be? I lived in Los Angeles, and I worked in East LA, South Central, in the 90s. And then I lived in Queens, New York, and I worked in East Harlem. So I was like, how hard is this gonna be?
How bad am I going to get punched?
Yeah. And then literally, I think within 10 minutes of being in Grimsby, so my protocol was arrive in a town, go to my Airbnb, put my bags away, go to the grocery store, Marks and Spencer's, because I knew the color coding for the gluten-free section. So I find it, it's the maroon arch, and so I find it, and as I'm walking to it, I come across an adult like vaping inside the grocery store, which I was like, okay. But he was holding something, and it turned out it was a leash, and the leash was connected to a child that was eating popcorn off the floor. And I thought...
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. Okay, this was within 10 minutes of Grimsby. And then in the grocery stores in England, they don't have any cashiers. It's all self-checkout. And so they have like one person that's like...
If you're not competent to check yourself out, I guess we'll help you.
Okay. And so I go to the self-checkout, right? So now we're like 12 minutes into my Grimsby experience. And I go to the self-checkout, and there's a woman trying to check stuff out, but she can't figure out the thing. And so there's a man in front of me who's growing aggravated by this. And he's like hunched over like this, and he keeps rocking back towards me as if we're allies in his disgust for this lady who is simply, she can't scan. And he keeps barking at me like, can you believe this? And I did this. And then I went home, had dinner, and then that night I was going to an FA Cup game for Grimsby's Youth Academy out at Blundell Park, which is it's outside of Grimsby, but I was taking a bus there. And right before I left, I was in the city center of Grimsby, and right before I left the flat, someone was having a psychotic event like immediately outside my door. So we could see each other, but it was like hazy. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna wait this out. Right?
Good move.
And then this was like solid. I am a man of poor judgment, and that one was pretty good. So I'm standing there, and it was in that moment where I thought, and I had just left, Sarah had just like gone home to America. And she didn't want any part of the North, and I thought that was valid. But I thought to myself, she's really smart. And then the psychotic event like leaves, and then I make my way to a bus stop. And again, it's night, it's in Grimsby. It's like the stabbiest place in England. And then I get on the bus, and then there was two women in down coats sitting right across from me on this bus, and they had 5-gallon buckets that were stuffed to the brim with like day-old bread. And I thought, again, like,
What else are the pigeons gonna eat?
yeah, what am I doing out here? And then I get to Blundell Park, and it's at night, and I don't know where I'm going, and I approach Blundell Park, and there's a giant black gate, and it's metal, and it has barbed wire all the way across the top. And it is straight out of Lord of the Rings. And again, now it's raining, and I have no umbrella, and it's just whatever. And this is the job. That's what I kept telling myself. This is the job. This is why
I signed up for that.
I signed up for all of this. And then I go into the game, and the game has a very sorrowful turn because I didn't really know this, but one of the players had just died for the Grimsby youth team. So it was so sad. So I walked into basically a funeral, like a memorial for this young person who had died. And they had only opened one bank of seats. And now I didn't know where to sit. And so I was standing on like the rail, and the pitch was like right there. And then an older gentleman comes up next to me, and just to make conversation, I'm like, "Do you come here often?" You know? And he drops just a hammer of truth on me, and he's like, "I used to come here." And I was like, "Oh." And he's like, "But I had to stop coming here." And then he proceeds to tell me that he had to stop coming there because that road and that fandom led him down a very dark road. And he decided to tell all of that to an American who had no idea what was going on.
Todd from America.
Todd from America. And so that was a very good slice of what this whole journey was. Of wherever I went, there was always a moment like that was very mysterious, but it was also I was going where Americans like simply weren't going, so it was almost like a unicorn, which is what became Todd from America.
Todd from America. I gotta say, that is a gloomy story, and it's very appropriate to the town of Grimsby. Although I have to say, reading your book, I think that you paint some really interesting characters, some very normal people, but you depict them in a really interesting way. You show their fandom in a really interesting way. It's a super fun book to read. I've enjoyed it so many times. I've read it twice.
Thank you.
Out of a feeling of responsibility having to do with this moment that we're in now.
But you didn't know that I would just do all the talking.
I know. I mean, I'm like, you're talking about the saddest parts of the book, and we're trying to sell books. And it's not even my book. You know what I mean?
All right, let's pump this up.
Okay, I want to say that the big takeaway for me in this book, knowing you as a person and spending time with you on this trip, but also spending time with you in the hockey rink, and I used to play hockey. Todd and I played together in adult league games, and Todd would always try and get me assists. He'd just go be the big guy that you are. Hang around in front of the net and just kind of block the goaltender and tip the thing that I'm going to get the puck to you, and you bury it.
The problem was you were always looking the wrong direction.
Right, I know. It's like, where's the puck? Where's the puck? but that's kind of who you are, I think, in a way. It's like you're trying to encourage more fun in the game. That was my experience, actually. And the thing that I took away from the book is what must have been a highlight for you from your time in the UK was when you were voted man of the match in the pickup game that you played, right? Right? I mean, that had to be such a fun thing to be named the man of the match in the pickup game with a bunch of people that you didn't even know.
Yeah.
And you were just Todd from America to them, and they sent you a message and said that you were the special one. That had to feel so good.
I was special once.
That's a good feeling. To be special at any time.
Anytime.
You know?
I had this grand idea of, well, I'm going to be here for 3 months. I might as well play.
Don't want to get completely out of shape.
Yeah, while I'm here. So I got an app called Footy Addicts, which is extremely appropriate. And I found my way to West London, and there in that part of London, they have all these little pitches that are underneath the freeways.
As depicted in Ted Lasso.
And they're cages, and so it's very like one man enter, whatever that Mad Max thing is. Thunderdome, is it Thunderdome? Very Thunderdome vibes. This one in West London was across from like a council estate, and so when I came off the tube, shit got real quick, and I joined this match, and it literally was one of the worst experiences of my life. I wanted to cry. It was so aggressive and so angry and so just terrible.
If you would have cried, they would have picked on you and called you a crybaby and pushed you down.
And then I was so bad and they were so good that there was like a small child there that was playing in a De Bruyne jersey. And this was like the best person I had ever played soccer with. And he was like this tall. And some guy was like, "Oi, you guard the kid." And I was like, and it was so awful. But Sedaris is the one that said, the worse it is, the better the story. But in that moment, like, it was so awful. But no one talked to me after the match. Everybody just leaves, and then the new group comes on. And then now the freeway is here, and there's a full pitch that's here, and there's a big cage around it, but it's a full-size pitch. And I can hear it before I can see it. And it's the sound of donkeys. And I hear it like, they're here. They're here. And I find my way down around this pitch. And sure enough, there they are. They're covered in neoprene sleeves, the smell of like tiger balm, and everyone is like between gasping or smoking or throwing up. Everyone's overweight, and no one's running. The ball's moving, and no one is running. Exactly. So I'm like, they're my people. So I go home to the flat, and I find the game on the Footy Addicts app. But it's a private game. Invite only. So there's a contact, and so I email the guy like I was applying for college. This was like a personal collegiate essay. And I just opened the vein and told this dude who I was. So he said, we play every Tuesday at this time. And so I circle back into London and I go play with the Donkeys of West London. And this is the match you're talking about.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And
Not.
it was, the pitch was a little elevated. It wasn't under the freeway. Now I'm looking at the freeway. And it's bumper to bumper, and it's all the neon billboards, and now it's raining, and I'm on a pitch, and it's like 10v10. No one's running. The ball's moving. And it was honestly one of the greatest moments of my life.
Those guys appreciated you.
And everybody, it was the whole galaxy of players. It was from all over the world, but the mentality was the same. And the game and the world had shrunk to that pitch. And after the match, everyone came over. It was like, we're going to the Eagle. You're coming. And I was like, I guess I'm nothing. And then before I knew it, I was in the back seat of some stranger's car zipping through Kensington. And we walk into this pub called the Eagle. And there's literally a giant wooden eagle behind the bar and a giant bell. And it was like straight out of Ted Lasso. They had their own table. Like they all sat down and all the pints came. And they talked about what all donkeys talk about when they're together. It's everyone goes around the table and confesses where they're hurt. And everyone's like, how's your groin? And we're like, do you still have road rash? And it went on for like the whole night. And I thought, I found my people. But in that moment, it was beautiful because I realized, okay, if I lived here, this was my game. These were my people. I knew the subway stop, I knew the convenience store, and so every time I was in London, I went and played with those people. And they welcomed me every single time. And it was Todd from America, the whole thing. And then on after one of those matches, I was off, right? I used, one of the train hubs is like, I used that transition like every time because I knew where everything was. And so it was on one of those days where I was now going off into the unknown again, right? I was going to some city that I'd never been to. I didn't know anything about anything. And that's when I got that text that was like, you've been voted man of the match.
Voted.
Voted!
Yeah. The closed ballot.
Rigged election. No, but that helped me like gain the confidence that, that I was on like a special journey because in reality, I had traveled more through the UK than they had. There's something about that experience where every 3 or 4 days I was moving, I was going places that they had never gone to, and it went on repeatedly. People would tell me, you're mental. And I'm like, Minnesota is the size of your country. Like a 3-hour journey for me to go anywhere, and I don't have to do anything. I just have to get on the train. I can sit, I can eat, I can read whatever, I can listen, I can watch. Like they thought I was crazy, but it changed the narrative. So people started asking me the questions. And then I went to Manchester, and then it got real in a lot of ways because now I was playing footy in one of the hardest places to play footy. It is Manchester in English football scene is a holy city. And again, I found myself at 6:15 in the morning, walking through the cold, rainy streets of Manchester, doubting myself the entire way. The inner monologue was frightening. It was like, what are you doing? You're 50 years old. The whole thing. And then I got to those cages, and they were the best football players I had ever played with, to a man. everyone who entered that cage was the best player that I'd ever played. And I played there enough that they started configuring the lineup to accommodate how shitty I was.
That's love.
That is love. That wasn't hate, that was love.
You know what's so cool about that story is it seemed to me, at least, in the very limited experience that I had compared to yours, which was vast, that Premier League football and English football permeates a culture over there in a way that's like kind of astounding. And I think you got to the root of that kind of community sense that those people who are from those places feel for one another around that game. I think we have a sense of it here with our professional teams and our college teams to some extent, but not like over there. It's the passion is really burning hot, burning strong. I'm reminded especially of the time that we spent in Liverpool when we were at Stanley Park, and we went to the game there at Everton and got some gear to kind of like prime ourselves after that experience, and walked over to see the Liverpool stadium, and the guy came pulling around the corner, and like some kind of a like angel actually, who was an Everton cab driver, and he was like, "What are you doing on the Stanley Park? You shouldn't be anywhere near the Liverpool. Why are you wearing that hat? You can't wear blue over there. Get my cab. I'm gonna get you out of here. We'll keep you safe."
So, to summarize, let me translate.
I really got to the point, I felt like.
Let me translate. Munson was wearing a blue Everton hat. We had walked.
It said the originals on it. Because they were the original, weren't they? The first team to have the originals hat, Luca.
And then we go, so the Everton ground is like a holy ancient cathedral. Think Fenway Park, Wrigley Field. We walk through a park, and then we end up on Liverpool's ground.
And the park was not that big of a park.
No.
It was this very small park.
And then now it becomes almost Disney-like, where there's a plaza with like crushed rock, and there's lines of buses and taxis for all the tourists. And then 3 American idiots. And then there's lines and lines of tourists to go on this stadium experience. And this cab driver literally yells from across the plaza to get into his cab. And the 3 of us are like, okay, this sounds fun. And so then we get into the back of the taxi, and what we realize is the taxi driver is an Evertonian. And he's trying to save us from being stabbed.
I think that's effectively what he was doing.
And then he takes us on a tour of Liverpool. And then what I'll always remember about that is that we asked him to drop us off at a pub, naturally. And he pulled onto the sidewalk in the car, and the door of the taxi opened immediately into the door of the pub without separation. So we went like that, and then a pint came, and we were like, okay. But the Liverpool story is really interesting because I had a source basically in every city I went to. And I had somebody that was kind of like my handler somewhat. And the handler I had in Liverpool was psychotic. But this gentleman...
It's a theme.
He goes to every single Everton match, regardless of where it is. So worldwide, he's there. And he arrives in St. Paul to see Everton play the United. And it's a preseason match, and we were there. My brother was there with my lovely nieces. And this psychopath was sitting behind my brother. And he was losing his shit, during a meaningless exhibition game, to the point where he had to apologize to my brother for cursing so much. My brother, being my brother, said, "This sounds like a guy that I should connect with my brother." Of course. And so I get the info from Tony, and I correspond with this guy for months before I land in Liverpool. And then I get to Liverpool with Sarah, and Luca and Munson are there, and we arrange a dinner. Again, Sarah's the smart one and sits this out. So we arrive at an Italian restaurant, and the psychopath comes in, and he sits down, and within seconds, he is screeching that anyone who supports Liverpool Football Club is a fucking rat. And that was how he introduced himself to us. And from that point, I knew I was in the deep end in Liverpool. And it really, really was, because the Grimsby story, I was supposed to go somewhere else after Grimsby. And I should have gone somewhere else. I was going to York, right? Nice medieval city. I could spend a couple days detoxifying from Grimsby. But then I get offered the chance of a lifetime, which is the experience to go to an away match with the Everton supporters from Liverpool to London. Which means I'm going to be on one of the supporter buses, a traveling psychotic tribe from Liverpool to London. I'm like, what could go wrong? And it ended up being one of the greatest scenes in the book, but also one of the most alarming. Because we stop at a truck stop, and I don't realize why we've stopped, but I learned quickly that we were going down to London too fast, which meant it was against the law that the Scousers could not be on the ground in West London before a certain amount of time. Because what that meant is that if you gave them too much time, they would drink too much beer, they would set something on fire. History tells you that this is the reality. So now I'm in a parking lot somewhere between Liverpool and London with 10 to 12 buses of psychopaths. And one of the psychopaths says...
They're drinking too much beer anyway, on the buses.
Yeah, duh. And one of the psychopaths says, "Do you want to see my dad's tattoos?" And I'm like, "I don't know, do I?" And he's like, "You do." And then he says, "Dad, show Todd from America your tattoos." Before I know it, there's a 70-year-old man right in front of me, like jacket off, sweatshirt off, shirt off. Now he's bare-backed into my face. And he has 20 plus tattoos on his back. And each tattoo is the face of an Everton legend. And they are set in rows like it's a school yearbook. And he's like back into me like this. And it's like, it's a grown man's back. It's not good.
I want to see someone's Alan Page tattoo on their back in this room. Anyone? No?
And I have so many questions. But my first question to this man is, do you regret any of these faces on your back? Because English football players, once they retire, aren't, great people. Largely. They have a lot of faults. And then he says, yes, one. And I'm like, okay, who is it? And he says, Duncan Ferguson. Which, total surprise for me. Because Big Dunk is like one of the most beloved Everton players of all time.
Story.
And there's a mural of Big Dunk across from Goodison Park. And I was like, really? Why do you regret Duncan Ferguson's tattoo? And he goes, well, I met Duncan Ferguson once, and I told Duncan that I had his face tattooed to my back. I said, what did he say? He goes, he said I was mental. And he goes, can you believe that?
Needs to meet the other 20 guys.
And I thought, yeah, I can believe that. And then all of a sudden that made me realize none of this was normal. Like, this was all mental because it was a Monday night. And these 10 buses of people had paused their entire lives to go 4 hours to London to watch a game that's an hour and a half long in the pouring rain, in the middle of winter, and then get back on the bus and arrive back in Liverpool at 4 a.m. and then continue on with their lives as nothing happened. And then I started asking questions to all the people on these buses. What do you do for work? Like, how do you get out of this? Like, because I got on the bus at noon. And they were like, oh, to a person on this bus, they all had arranged with their employers that they can work half days after away games for Everton. And I thought, that is not normal. And then you start to think about in American terms. Like, can you imagine going to Chicago and then coming right back and then just moving on like nothing happened?
Only one time.
Only one time.
The thing that I got out of that was the idea that the true blue fan, the mental fan, the guy with the back tattoos or whatever, the guy with the giant E on his bald head or whatever. I love that the thing that you got out of one of them was that they didn't want the possibility of missing something, like missing a moment that was like too much to bear. So it was like worth it to go down to like see that in case something happened in that game that would be legend, like so many of the legends that they talk about with one another.
And then he told me that at a halftime. The old man sitting next to me, who just happened to be the same guy with the back tattoos. It's like, again, this book was like in the stars. And so he tells me that whole thing about he's been going to away matches since he was able to do so. So 14, 15, 16. Because he never wanted to miss that chance of a golden goal or a golden win or something. But in the second half of that match that was right in front of us, one of those moments happened that will be immortalized in Everton history forever. And it happened right in front of me. And I realized what he was talking about. And that became the turn. That was the turning point of the trip. It was the turning point of my emotional journey. The whole thing pivots on that moment that this guy was just talking about. And so that's a good place to stop.
We're good. We have some time for questions. Yeah.
Okay. So we would like to open the floor for questions. Keep in mind, there's a lot of donkeys here. So any questions for me or the tool master of Brainerd?
Sure.
Anyone? Hello?
Was there like a community or town that endeared yourself, that you just fell in love with, that you weren't expecting and why?
Easy. Stockport County. And Stockport is an old industrial, one of the dirtiest places in the Industrial Revolution. It's just south of Manchester. So 2 of the biggest teams in the world are right there. They've always, for centuries, have shit on Stockport. And Stockport had this one of the worst cities in England reputation for decades. But they had a team that had been relegated in the death spiral. So they had been relegated all the way out of league football, and they had to come back up. And my main problem with interviews and stuff over there was it's not like in American sports where when I was writing for the Wild, I could just ask to interview any player or coach at any time for both teams. For if the Maple Leafs were in town, I could contact them and say, I want to talk to this player. And that they would orchestrate everything for me. Over there, in no matter what level of English football, you have no access to the players or the coaches. And so to circumvent that, I would always reach out to the supporter group manager or president or whoever. And then, so every city that I went to, I would have like a host. And it was almost always the supporter group. And in Stockport was a guy that, named Dave, I think had been waiting his whole life for someone to ask him anything. And I knew immediately what that meant. This was a guy from the north, and he worked in a pharmaceutical factory, right? His dad was, he was like a sandblaster in Manchester before there was ever any EPA or like labor laws or anything like that. Reg was a sandblaster in Manchester. And so Dave was his son who worked on a factory floor. And all of a sudden I was with my people, right? Those are my people. There's a lot of people here who know me from work, right? You know what I do for a living and it's not clean. And so all of a sudden I was with my people. And the scene where he told me, before the match at Stockport, he told me to meet him at the Ye Olde Vic, which was like a historic old pub. But when I walked in, it was like the record skipped. And it was like Todd from America coming in. And all of a sudden, I found Dave. And he was my people. And he had brought a whole legion of men that were also like factory workers. And I got to experience Stockport from the ground up. And then afterwards, I'm interviewing Dave repeatedly, every night through emails and stuff like that. And he tells me basically the story of his life and his dad's life. And so the original chapter of Stockport was actually written as I wrote the eulogy for his dad, right? I wrote a eulogy for Reg as I just wanted to change the narrative to combine life and work and football into one seamless passage. And their family was forever grateful because I had captured what his life was like. Because I found myself researching like labor laws in Manchester and the life of a sandblaster and all that stuff. So I could incorporate all that. Now, the final chapter of the book of Stockport isn't that, but there's all the best elements are in there. And like I'm forever a Hatter. Like I went back, me, Sarah, and Murphy went back this last winter, and I went to Stockport, and I was welcomed into the like the VIP area by the club president, and it was all the muckety mucks and me and Paul, and I wasn't like cocky or anything, but I was like, the president got up and introduced me to the whole room of fancy people. And then he said, everyone, put their hands together for Todd Edwards. And I was like, Wembley Park would like to welcome, give a warm round of applause for Todd Edwards. And so Paul and I are in the bank of all the hardcore supporters. And I stand up and I go like this, and we are dying because it's the most donkey moment of all time. So, all right. Any other questions?
Did you learn about the impact on communities about relegation as our Wolves go down this year? Like, what's that kind of draining feeling like on the communities when they go down?
When a team goes down, depending on the town, right? Depending on the town. But when a team goes down from the Premier League to the Championship, and they keep going down, but when a team goes down, they lose hundreds of millions of dollars. And what that means is it activates like a spiral, where the club will have to sell all of their top players to make up some money that they're losing from this cushy TV deal. And now they don't have their best players, so they have to find replacements that aren't as good. And so the game starts to suffer because they don't have the players. When the game starts to suffer, they can't charge the tickets the same way. If Stockport was playing Manchester United, they could charge unlimited money for those tickets. But when they're playing like Bromley, they can only charge 20. So now the gate suffers. And then all the corporate sponsors start to pull out, all the pubs start to suffer, the whole community center starts to suffer.
Don't talk about it anymore. Read the book.
Read the book. But the reverse can happen, where Stockport now had gone all the way down and the town had gone all the way with it. And then Stockport started to come back up. And now Stockport has a multi-million-dollar hub, a city center that will rival anyone in those small markets. They have a great music scene, a great food scene, and the team just keeps going up. And so all of a sudden the town and the people in it are filled with pride, right? But I did go into the Cotswolds, which is like Downton Abbey territory. And they had a team. There was a gentleman back there in a Forest Green Rovers sweatshirt. And lovely ground, lovely team, lovely setting. It was like going to a football match in a nice countryside. And they were facing like multiple relegations. And like no one cared. Like literally no one cared. Because that area in that town was very, very comfortable. The weather was nice, the economy was nice, so it didn't really matter. So the relegation and the promotion can affect cities harder than others, specifically in the north. Yeah, so.
Two quick questions. First of all, Everton, the match you were talking about, what was the special moment that was pivotal for you? I'm just curious.
Read the book.
Good move. Good move.
Follow-up question. Would you consider a tattoo on your back?
Yes.
100%. I would start with, it has to be Potter, right? Right? No, just kidding. Any other questions?
So as a gluten-free person, what was in your pipe? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a disaster. I hadn't drank a beer for 20 some years, and I knew going into it I would have to venture into those worlds. So I stuck to cider if I could, but there was a few moments when I could not do that. So I just stomached it down, and there's a scene in the book written for you that I'll just say that I texted my brother in the middle of the night that I had fashioned a homemade diaper. So, yeah. And all get one guess as to what city that was in. Grimsby. Yeah. And I spent I was awake the whole night. And on my train app, I realized there was an early train out of Grimsby. I was on that train.
Todd, we have time for one more question, and then you're going to go and sign some books, I think. Last question.
My twin sister.
You wrote a book named Relegated. Your team, Wolverhampton, got relegated. How do you feel about it?
I'm taking it very personally myself, just from my perspective, which is, of course, the most important one to me. But Todd?
It's very troubling and also kind of awesome for publicity. But Wolves have been terrible. They've been circling the drain for 4 years, so we've been preparing for this.
I have not.
He has.
I've been preparing for this. Okay, that's it.